Hello, 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 and welcome. Especially if you're watching the replay, hello and welcome. I apologize for anybody coming in. I'm starting this a little bit late today. The Tuesday Musings video that I just filmed was a little bit longer than usual, but it's about super important topic about how to process trauma as it happens. We've been having some really intense things happening in the world. There was just a pretty huge event that happened yesterday, a big mass shooting in Vegas, and people, I think, are having a challenging time processing a lot of this. Not only are social traumas like that happening, but we have people even in here who've experienced something really huge recently. I've been seeing it a lot, so I wanted to make a pretty long Tuesday Musings video actually that supports you guys in overcoming trauma in the moments that it's occurring. So I'll look forward to hearing what you guys think about that. Don't mind me, I'm gonna find my notes and just look at them for a second. I wonder if anybody is gonna be available to join me live. Today we're talking about boundary setting, and last time we were together, which was 3 weeks ago now, since we had 2 integration weeks recently. The last time we were together was for emotional alchemy, and before that it was vibrational awareness. And those 2 topics are pretty heavy lifting. They can really shake things up inside of us. So that's why we had 2 full integration weeks afterwards to, really give ourselves some time and space to practice, to let our bodies adjust to this new way of approaching our challenges. And hopefully those weeks were great for you. I would love to hear how it's been going. So please leave your comments. Let me know how you're doing. That's what I'm here for. I would love to help you through whatever specifically it is that you're going through. And today, we're talking about setting boundaries. It's the next logical place to go, because you'll remember our last step in the process of emotional alchemy was to set a new boundary, to make a new decision about how you'll move forward. And today I would really love to give you some extra support around how and why it's important to do that. So that's what we're doing. As always, if questions start coming up, please leave them below, whether you're watching now or in the replay. It seems like it might just be me here for a little bit. I don't see anybody joining me, and that's totally fine. So if you're watching the replay again, please make sure to leave your comments. I'm just going to take a bite of this apple, and then we're going to start diving in. So good. Okay. So let's take a couple big, deep breaths together. In and out. I hope you're breathing along with me. Let's get started. So I'm really excited about today because we're about to take what we've been doing for the last, it's been probably like almost 10 weeks now, almost 2 months that we've been here together. We're taking it from internal and bringing it more to the external realm, like really finding ways to make this real in our lives and in our relationships, okay? So something that came into my mind that I'll just put on your radar is that there are different ways to create change in our lives, right? And we're all passionate about being able to create the changes that we want to see in our lives and doing it quickly. So the first way is an internal shift. And that's what we've really been spending most of our time on. And we're still going to spend a little bit of time there today in boundary setting, believe it or not. Really focusing on an internal shift and making changes within yourself that create a different experience outside of yourself, okay? The second way, once you've already done all of that and you're still not seeing the change you want, is setting boundaries, which is the main thing we're talking about today, setting good boundaries for yourself. And then third, which we'll be moving into in upcoming weeks, is to fine-tune the actions that you're taking to really get them into more alignment with who you are and where you want to go. So I'm excited. This is a really big, important part of mental wholeness and being able to be consistent, being able to connect with other people well, okay? Because as we move forward into a place where we want to connect with other people, right? That's part of why we're here, to create consistent connection with other people. Boundaries are part of what make us feel safe to do that. When we know that we can support ourselves and make sure that our relationships are meeting our needs and fulfilling us, supporting us in a way that feels good for us, in a way that we have a say in what we will and won't tolerate in our lives. It feels a lot safer to connect openly with people when you trust yourself to be able to set good boundaries when you need to. So that's what we're here for today, ladies. Ladies and gents, if there are any gents watching this replay right now, we're a group full of ladies, so I love it. So like I said before, we're really taking the internal shifts and making them external here. Setting better boundaries is so essential, not only in feeling safe, but it can increase your income to set good boundaries for yourself. You can really greatly improve the quality of your life just through this practice of getting really familiar with when you need to set a boundary and how to go about doing it, okay? So this is a big, important class, and there's a lot of information. We're going to be kind of light on experience today. As you know, every one of these modules, we start with information, motivation about why this is important, and then we go into some information, and then we have an experience so that you can feel what it's like right away, right here, and then we leave you with an action step. So today's class is going to be kind of light on experience. There is a little bit of experience involved, I promise, but we're heavy on information. So make sure you have your notepad and make sure that you're able to listen, or, you know, maybe you are scurrying around the house doing housework while you listen to me. I think it's fantastic. Part of why that is so fantastic, it's related to body love. And just, you know, to refresh, when you can be engaging your body through doing something like cleaning, right? And you're also thinking and taking in new information about the way that you want things to go versus like spending the time spinning in your existing pattern, it really helps sink things down into your bones. So like, for instance, if you're trying to adopt a new belief into your life, a really great tool to do that is through repeating a mantra or really focusing on that new mindset that you want while you're moving your body, like while you're doing exercise. So that was a little digression there, but it's important nonetheless. And it's related to body love. And again, these are just lenses. Like this work is never going to end. None of us are 100% amazing and complete on any of these topics that we've been covering, okay? There's always a way to take it deeper, always a way to reapply these to your life so that you can create change and more fulfillment for yourself. That's how I wanted to design this, something you can come back to over and over again. So back into the boundaries. So when you want to create a change for yourself, as we talked about at the beginning, the 3 ways to create a change, when internal shifts aren't getting you the results that you want, boundaries is the next place to look, like your external boundaries, what you're tolerating in your life and what's going on, in your relationships. And boundaries are also within yourself. So the first place is really that internal shift of setting a boundary within yourself, which we're going to talk about more. But setting external boundaries is another great place to look. So hopefully I don't lose you too much there. It can be a little bit confusing, but it's true. Looking internally to set the boundary is where we want to start, okay? I often find that if somebody else is crossing a boundary, like if a situation is being presented to me that feels uncomfortable and it's crossing my boundary, or, whatever, somebody's crossing a boundary of mine, it doesn't feel good for me. Usually I am already crossing that boundary internally somewhere. So maybe it's through my self-talk. Like, for instance, if somebody is criticizing you or me for not doing enough work throughout the course of the day or something like that, right? So like, I know Jenny, we've talked about this before. You've talked about it in the group, feeling guilty asking for help at home because he works so hard. And, I don't know what you think you do. You work really hard too, as do I. But when somebody is like making you feel uncomfortable, the boundary is crossed because you have too much work to do to pick up slack for like more people than just you and more than feels good for you to do, there's often a boundary being crossed up here that says, I'm not doing enough, right? So like the boundary that's being crossed is internal, somewhere in the self-talk or in the actions that you're tolerating, in the habits that you're tolerating, in the situations that you're tolerating in your life. You're crossing a boundary somewhere internally, and then that's being reflected to you by the people in your life. So just really reinforcing this idea that looking internally is the first place to go when you're talking about setting boundaries. So how are we spending our time, money, and energy? How are we spending our time, money, and energy? This is a great way to assess where our boundaries are, okay? Setting better boundaries naturally increases your value, okay? So you feel more valuable when you care enough about yourself to really be setting and sticking to the boundaries that feel supportive for you, and other people will reflect that back to you. You will tolerate less from other people. You will demand more. I mean, you don't have to do it in like an angry or forceful way. You can just do it in a way that's like, naturally, why would I accept that? That's, it doesn't have to be like a big dramatic fight thing. Actually, it probably shouldn't be, though it might be at first when you're practicing. It can feel really natural and fluid to set good boundaries for yourself with practice. It can feel really, really good and natural. So we're on the start of that process today. Please, if you're here, let me know you're here, because maybe someone is here with me and it's just not registering on the live, and maybe not, and that's fine. If you're watching in the replay, again, thank you so much for being here, and please feel free to leave your comments and questions below, okay? I can tell that I'm talking kind of fast, so maybe I should try and slow down so that your pens can keep up with me. So let's see here. Am I missing anything? I don't think so. So we're going to talk a little bit about like the different kinds of boundaries that we can pay attention to in our lives. And I'm going to give you guys a little process about how to go about setting boundaries. Yeah, and then we're going to dive into the experience. So if we keep going at this rate and no one shows up with any comments, then, we might actually have a pretty quick class today, hopefully. I've been trying to shorten these for you because I know it can be difficult to really sit and stay in tune for like an hour and a half. We've been having some pretty long classes and live streams, but okay. Whew. So Internal boundaries, okay? We've talked about internal boundaries a little bit, and this is the first place. This is the most important place. This is where all of your boundaries start, okay? So the internal boundary is really a boundary between your mind and your body. That's how I understand it, okay? Sometimes, and balance is what we want to seek here. It's not that you're always relaxing and it's not always working. You're finding a balance where there's like a collaborative relationship between your mind and your body, that you know what to do, what will feel good for you, okay? It's like a dance that you're going to be improving upon over time. So every boundary that you set in the outside world, again, it traces back to an internal boundary, okay? I want to come up with an example because I know that that can be helpful. So like, for instance, if you are feeling like you have to do a lot, like say for instance, you feel overwhelmed because you have too many responsibilities, right? Like you're doing a lot of things and you're having trouble finding the time in the day to do all of those things. And you're adding more things into your plate all the time because you want to get further in your career. And the only way you know how to do it is by doing more things. And society tells you that you have to do more things to be more successful. Then chances are you're crossing an internal boundary where your mind wants to continue doing all of those things, but your body is resisting it, right? You're crossing your body's boundary by making it do too much. And you're crossing a mental boundary, like basically telling yourself that you're not good enough. Like that drives from a place of not good enough, need to do more to deserve the things that I want. So when you can set a boundary internally that says, I am good enough, I deserve to create a life and to set boundaries that feel really good and supportive for me. I can set boundaries and then I'll be able to help other people more effectively. I'll actually be able to do more for other people when I'm setting healthy boundaries. When you can really go internally and set that boundary, make that decision internally about what you're going to do, it becomes much more straightforward to translate that out into the world, which we'll be moving into more. But again, we're reinforcing this idea that setting boundaries, it starts here. It starts in your relationship between your mind and your body, okay? So internal boundaries are like, what am I thinking? What am I spending my time thinking on? Okay. How am I spending my time, like in general in my life? What types of things am I spending my time on? Am I spending a lot of time watching TV? Am I spending a lot of time learning new things? Am I spending a lot of time, like, you know, whatever? Am I not spending enough time doing certain things? So where are you spending your time? That's an idea of where your boundaries are and what you're allowing in your life. Okay, so like, what are you accepting as tolerable behavior in your life? Okay, and so let me just say right here, right now, that just because you notice that somebody in your life or a situation is crossing your boundaries, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to nix that relationship and start from scratch entirely. I feel like we live in a society that does that, okay? We're like very no nonsense, and it's resulted in this culture where we can't talk about the boundary, you know? Like we have a really hard time communicating about our boundaries, which is stifling. It limits who we can work with. It limits our abilities to communicate about what we do. It limits our connection to ourselves and to other people, because when you approach it that way, like it's better just to stay away from any situation that might get unclear, right? But where's the expansion in that? Like, how do you find deeper connection when you're avoiding talking about the boundary? So my point there is you don't have to nix relationships just because you notice right now that they're crossing a boundary for you. Like it's possible potentially to communicate it first, to set that internal boundary about what you will and won't accept, what you will and won't do moving forward, and then watching the way that that unfolds in your life, because people might surprise you. There might be people who step up. So like, for instance, men in our lives often love to step up to these boundaries. They like to be held accountable and treat us well, but they're only going to treat us as well as we're treating ourselves. Okay, so we're sticking on this internal boundary thing. Hopefully this is resonating with you. Please let me know. Leave me a comment. Are you vibing with this? Tell me, is it making sense? Do you have questions? Give me a little sign of life in the comments if you're with me, okay? And you're probably watching the replay, but please still comment. Leave your comments. Let me know that you're here with me, okay? So I think that that's really all I'm going to say about the internal boundary. But another thing that is kind of related to the internal boundary is your energetic boundaries, okay? So we talked about this with vibrational awareness a little bit. It's related to empathy. So if you've ever noticed that you pick up the emotions of other people, that you're very influenced by your surroundings, like your surroundings influence the way that you feel, and there's a certain extent that you do need to choose where you're spending your time, right? Like you do need to choose wisely about, how am I spending my time? How does this feel for me? Yeah, there's a certain element of that. And you might find some results by strengthening your energetic boundary, like we talked about in vibrational awareness, because really what's happening around you, it doesn't need to have an emotional impact on you unless it's like triggering something in you. We're looking at boundaries here. So consider your energetic boundary a place where your energy ends and another person's begins. If you are in a room with someone, you are mingling with them. Your boundaries are kind of like mixing, which can be a lovely experience. And it can be a challenging experience if you're not aware of how that exists. So really going back and doing that vibrational awareness exercise to strengthen your own, to like really kind of strengthen your connection to your energetic self and build a strong boundary. I had you really picture a golden egg around yourself. And we can do that right now. So why don't we do that right now? And this is a little bit of an experience part, right? We're skipping ahead of the game a little bit, but take some really big deep breaths. I want you to feel this and feel the way, how empowering it is to know that you get to set this boundary for yourself. You get to determine what impacts your feeling, okay? Like you are in control of this, and you definitely can gain control of it as long as you're practicing, okay? So take some really deep breaths. Take some really deep breaths and just picture yourself surrounded by something that feels resonant for you, okay? So what I'm picturing is a golden egg that goes all the way around me. It starts above my head and it goes out all the way down below my feet, both in front and behind, all around me, keeping me safe. It's impenetrable. It's impenetrable. I get to choose when that egg opens to allow other people in, or when it stays closed to protect me and my own vibrational alignment, my own emotional well-being. I get to choose when that boundary changes or moves. So just take some time right now to really sink into that energetic boundary that you're creating for yourself. Maybe it's a bubble, not an egg. A bubble of whatever color you choose, okay? Really take some moments to connect to that and notice. And tune up your own vibration in there a little bit. Notice how you can bring yourself up to a better feeling place, even if only slightly. And I want you to pay attention to this throughout your days, okay? Really setting these internal boundaries for yourself that say, I am holding internal boundaries. I'm holding energetic boundaries that keep me where I want to be so that I'm raising other people to meet me. I'm not going down to meet them, okay? So that's what I'm going to say about that. If you have any questions about anything I'm saying, just leave comments, okay? Another really important thing that we should talk about when it comes to internal boundaries is your boundary with the universe, okay? So maybe this is your boundary with God. Maybe this is your boundary with the universe. However you choose to believe the boundary, you get to set boundaries with the universe, okay? Because here's the thing, there is always going to be more for you to do. We are in a hurting world right now that needs all of the support and empathy and love and everything that it can get. So if you're just here open and receiving all of it and saying, yeah, throw it on me, like I want to support everyone and I will work my ass off to accommodate more and more and more of it, like the universe is going to keep it on coming. Okay, so setting these internal boundaries about what you will and won't do, what you need to do for yourself, like you get to set those internal boundaries so that you can help more people well, okay? But you get to make that decision and really have a conversation with the universe or God about that and say, I will accept this, I won't accept this. And sometimes the universe is going to test you, okay? So that's a great practicing ground for setting boundaries. When you've decided on a boundary, you might notice that it starts presenting itself to you more often so that you can have practice really standing firmly in that. And the universe is great for that, sending little tests along our way, okay? Ooh, important stuff. Okay, so I feel like we've adequately covered the internal boundary, at least for now. If you're having questions about it, then please let me know. I feel like I'm talking a million miles a minute. I'm going to give myself a bite of this apple to give you people maybe a chance to try to comment, especially if you're watching after the fact. Oh, good. I wonder if you can hear me chewing. That would be annoying to me. So it's a delicious apple. I went apple picking a couple weeks ago. Okay. So let's take a couple more deep breaths. We're moving from the internal boundaries into a little bit more conversation about external boundaries. Okay? Okay, so let's talk first about personal, interpersonal boundaries, and we're going to talk after that about professional boundaries before I take you through the boundary setting process that I've created for you guys, okay? So think about a boundary. Like we said, the internal boundary, you can kind of look at it as like where your mind and body meet. That's one way to look at it, where you and the universe meet. Right, where your energetic field ends and another person's begins. Like we're moving already into that interpersonal, personal space. So think of a personal boundary, an interpersonal boundary. It's where you end and that other person begins, right? So a lot of times in our society, we actually kind of glorify codependence in a lot of ways when it comes to our interpersonal boundaries. Like you'll hear it as being a really good thing when you don't know where you end and the other person begins. And while that can be a really cool experience to have, and I don't think that it's like, you don't have to take that off the table because that's connection, right? That's what we want. We want a way to consistently connect with people. On a certain level, if you don't have control over that process, it's going to create issues for you. It's going to create issues for that relationship. So again, we've talked about the spectrum of codependence, independence, and interdependence. So let's talk about that in the context of boundaries a little bit, okay? We just talked about codependence. It's kind of like you don't know where that one person ends and the other one begins. It feels like if that person were removed from your life, you would die. Like you literally don't know what you would do without that person. You literally don't think that you would be able to survive if something happened to that person. It's, you know, when that person is like influencing all of the decisions that you're making, not that it's bad, like you can let other people influence your decisions, but it's a matter of being in control of it. It's a matter of, is it supporting you? Is it expansive for you? Or is it a codependent relationship where, you know, you're recreating some dysfunctional patterns with each other, and you just don't know how to be individual people anymore. You just don't know how to separate yourself from the other. Okay, that's like codependence when it comes to boundaries. So like, if other people's problems become your problems, then you might want to take a little look here, like watch that, okay? Because there is a certain level of being helpful and making someone else's problem your problem, you know, taking responsibility for your part in the creation of any problem, being engaged and caring about helping another person. Like those things are fine, but when you really are feeling everything that has to do with that problem, when you are concerned about solving all the problems, even if they don't directly relate to you, then you're probably crossing your own boundaries somewhere. And honestly, we do people a disservice when we do that. So like when you take all of that responsibility, you've taken all of the responsibility, right? So like it's good to take responsibility. It's good to accept the fact that you control your own life and you get to control your results and you get to, you know, determine how you spend your time and all these things. Like it's good to take responsibility, but when you're taking responsibility away from somebody else, when you're doing it for them, you're actually doing them a disservice. Because when you step back from a relationship like that, watch how the other person has the opportunity then to take the responsibility for their part. They have the opportunity then to step up and fill that space that you're kind of pushing your boundary way outward to include other people in all of their problems when you're in this like codependent problem-solving state, okay? So I think that that's probably all I'll say about that. Just remember that if it feels challenging to take that responsibility back, or if you feel like, what would people do without me? Like, and you might kind of like that. You know, I know I used to feel that way. Like sometimes when we get in this codependent boundary state, we kind of like that other people depend on us. And in a sense, there's an interdependence. We have that too, which we'll be getting there. We're going to go through this whole spectrum. But just remember that, God, I lost my train of thought. Just remember that it's not necessarily doing a service to people when you're taking all of the responsibility, because then they are not taking the responsibility and they're not going to see improvement in their life when they aren't taking responsibility for making the improvement happen. Okay? So like a lot of times we'll see this with parent relationships with their kids, especially these days, you know, and we won't go too deeply into that here, but if you have questions about any of that, please don't hesitate to let me know. You can also see it a lot in romantic relationships, like a codependence of like, you know, if you're literally doing everything for your partner, and how would they ever survive without you? Like, it's actually kind of a selfish thing when we do that, you know, because then what are they going to do without us? Right? Like, we can't guarantee that we're going to be around forever, whatever that means. So we need to be empowering other people to step up into their own independence, and we'll do that by like kind of creating cleaner boundaries between ourselves and other people. So we were just talking about codependence, and now we're kind of moving into the independence realm, right? An independent realm in boundaries is basically like, I end and other people begin, and I meet all my own needs, again, like independence, right? I don't need anybody else around me to meet my needs, and I also don't really have that much time for anybody else's stuff. I'm just independent. I have a firm boundary wall around me, and it's probably kind of impenetrable, right? So we have our own challenges that come with this independence place. It's a great thing to strive for independence if you feel like you're in kind of a codependent boundary place. It's a great thing to strive for independence, and that will look like setting firmer boundaries around you, making sure you're accepting your responsibility without taking responsibility from other people, okay? And it's not the end. It's not the end of the journey, because eventually, once you're in this independent place, you can do everything for yourself, and you know, it's fantastic, but you crave that connection, right? So that's when we move into interdependence, which is beautiful. That's like the goal that we have, right? In all of these scenarios that we're talking about: codependence, independence, interdependence. Interdependence looks like I have control over when my boundary is closed and when it is open. I have control to connect with somebody easily and effortlessly and consistently when I want. I have the ability to be vulnerable with them, to go into deeper and deeper levels of connection with them. And I have the ability to come back into myself when I need to, know that I still am in control of meeting my own needs and responsibilities, know that I can survive if I need to by myself. You know, we need other people to survive, really. Like, even in survival scenarios, they say it's really important to have at least 2 people, you know. So I don't want to glorify, like, I don't want you ever to feel like you have to meet every single need yourself, but we also can't really rely on other people to do it for us. We need to take the responsibility in that independence place before we'll be able to meet needs with other people in a healthy way and get our needs met by other people in a healthy and productive way. So hopefully that makes sense to you about interpersonal boundaries and overlapping with this whole codependence, independence, interdependence kind of idea. Please, if any questions are coming up about this, leave them in the comments. I'm not sure if anybody is here with me. Again, it says that no one's here, and I'm not seeing any comments, but I know that sometimes live streams can get a little funny about that. So maybe someone's here. If you're watching it in the replay, please leave all your comments. I would love it. And another thing, before we move into professional boundaries here, is, are you respecting the boundaries of other people? Are you respecting the boundaries of other people? Okay, so this goes into kind of that codependent, independent, interdependent, but I really want you to start noticing, because there's kind of like 2 scenarios here. We talked about, right, if you're getting your boundaries crossed by someone in the world or some situation or something like that, there's a chance that there's an internal boundary that you're already crossing inside of yourself. And if you don't think that's happening, another place to look might be, am I crossing this boundary for anyone else? Okay? Am I crossing this boundary for anyone else? So like, And those two don't need to be mutually exclusive. You could be crossing the boundary internally for yourself and crossing that boundary for other people, even if you don't necessarily mean it. But it's just important to be aware of, right? Because this is another way that we can use an internal boundary shift to create change in our lives. So like, for instance, if you're noticing ghosting is the example that comes to mind. It's like this new dating concept, right? But I've noticed how it can kind of happen in business too. If you get ghosted, like people are falling off of the map, and it feels like it's kind of crossing your boundaries somehow because it doesn't necessarily feel good to you. This might be a universal boundary that would be set. Like, I don't tolerate people who just fall off the map and don't tell me where they go, whatever. But a place to look, if you want to change the fact that the people you're attracting into your life are ghosting you, like they're falling off the map and you have no idea where they went, the first place to look is, where am I abandoning myself? Okay. And am I doing that to anybody else? So is there a place in my life where I'm falling off the map and people aren't hearing from me, and, you know, like I'm ghosting them? So this is a great thing, especially as we're moving into professional relationships. So like, are there, for payment, right? Are there people not paying you on time, or they're not responsive when you try and collect payment from them, right? Or people aren't investing in the service that you offer, or whatever it might be, okay? Especially with that, are people not investing in the service that I offer? Is there an internal boundary where like, I'm not investing in myself somewhere, whether that be time, money, energy, whatever? Or am I somewhere not paying providers that I'm working with, right? Is there somewhere that I'm crossing that boundary for other people? And I'm going to really encourage you to take serious looks at this and start the practice of being your own best client. Like, when you want your boundaries to be respected, the first two steps are to respect your own goddamn boundaries, and B, respect the boundaries of other people around you. Okay? So those are the first two steps to look before we're even really like going into the world of asking for what we want. And we're going to be talking a lot more about communication and connection next week. But am I crossing this boundary internally somewhere? How can I better create a boundary for myself? B, am I crossing this boundary with other people somewhere in my life? And how can I be a different person? How can I be my own best client? How can I be that person that I'm looking for my partner to be? Or how can I be that person that I'm looking for my loved ones to be, like more so than I am right now? Okay, I hope this is resonating for you guys. Please leave comments and let me know what you're feeling and thinking about all this. And if it's helpful, hopefully this is clearing some stuff up for you. This is a really exciting topic. Okay, so we're moving into the professional realm. Okay, professional boundaries. It's a lot like interpersonal boundaries, and there are boundaries that exist all around us. Again, how are we spending our time, money, and energy? How are we treating other people? How are other people treating us? Like, boundaries exist all around. They're where we meet with other people. Like, where do we end and other people begin? And inside of ourselves, the boundary systems that we are holding within ourselves about what we will and won't accept, what we will and will not spend our time and energy on, okay? So I've split it up here into like internal, interpersonal, and professional, but boundaries exist all around us. And in a professional realm, I just really want to highlight that a lot of times the boundaries to pay attention to here are like your boundary between work and play. Okay, so like, I am somebody who has a tendency to overwork. I really do, even though we teach actually what we need to learn a lot of times, and that's 100% true for me. A lot of times I can go into this overworking place, because I love what I do. I love what I do, so it feels like fun sometimes. I forget the fact that like listening to audio trainings all the time isn't actually having fun and playing, like that's working. So I have to remember, like, okay, turn that off and listen to some music now. But it's oftentimes the boundary between work and play. So how balanced are you? How is that boundary doing between your personal life and your professional life? And, you get to choose in the professional boundaries world how you want your professional boundaries to look, right? Because just to give you an example, boundaries were a huge conversation topic when I was in the healthcare industry with my clients. What are the boundaries there? Are you able to contact people afterwards? Generally speaking, people would say, no, that's unacceptable. Like, I can't follow up with people now that I worked with 5 years ago because that's like an ethical boundary or something like that. Boundary, you can't accept gifts from the people you're working with, for instance. There are just different kinds of boundaries that community respects, and of course I respect it as part of the healthcare system. Now, when I'm growing my personal business, this business that I have that you ladies are a part of, right? Something that feels really important to me as far as my boundaries go, which is a little bit more complicated to navigate, but it feels right to me, is that I want my clients to be my friends. Honestly, like, I work with people that I love spending time with. You guys all fit this category. Like, I want to meet my clients for coffee and just chat as normal people, as equals, because we are all equals, right? I want my boundaries in my business to be kind of fluid like that. So it's kind of social and professional. Like, my lives, they kind of intermingle together. That's something that I'm playing with right now. And so far, it works pretty well. As far as my client boundaries go, like, that's my boundary that I keep with my clients, right? I want it to be pretty fluid. I want you to be able to contact me. I want our relationship to feel like a friendship. Not only am I like a guide or just teacher or whatever you consider me to be, but I'm a friend that you can contact. Like, Amanda invited me to her wedding and I went to that. Like, just because somebody isn't working with me in the moment, I don't want them to feel like our friendship is over. That's the boundary system that I have now, and I'm just trying to highlight how that's kind of different. You get to choose what you want your client boundaries to be like. You get to determine what you need to do to set that up for yourself. Internally, interpersonally, you get to decide what feels good for you and set up boundaries to support yourself in having that feels good. So setting boundaries is really the tool that lets you decide that. What do you want your professional relationships to look like? What do you want your work-life balance to look like? Setting boundaries, and that's true for the personal relationships too. What do you want your personal relationships to look like? What do you want your relationship with yourself to look like? When you put a boundary in place for yourself, you are deciding on creating what you want. You're deciding to create that experience that you want, and you are the only one who gets to decide what that looks like. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Yeah, build a working life that works for you and use your boundaries to raise your value in the workplace. So again, just touching on the fact that when you set good internal boundaries for yourself, when you set boundaries about what you will and will not accept in a professional relationship, when you set boundaries about what you will and will not accept from a friendship, you raise your value in all areas of life. You'll notice that people do start treating you better. People do start respecting your boundaries. Your income goes up. Your health feels better. You have more energy. Like, your value raises when you set more fulfilling boundaries for yourself. So this is a huge topic, and it's so important when you're talking about consistency in mental wholeness, consistency in your ability to create the things that you want to create, consistency in your connection to others. We're talking about such an essential piece here of setting boundaries. And I did want to just put on your radar that women, especially women, some men too, okay? So men, if this resonates with you, if there's a man watching the replay of this, then please know, if this resonates with you, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it away. But women especially have been socialized to base their value on how much they're willing to put themselves on the back burner for other people. Like, that's how we've been socialized. Is how well can we put our own needs to the side? How happy can we be while we put our own needs to the side while we take care of other people? That's one way that we've taught ourselves to value ourselves in this society. So if this is difficult for you, that's probably a good place to look, okay? We definitely can address that more, like, one-on-one, because it probably came from different places for each of us, but it's really normal to have a hard time with this, especially as women. We feel like doing for others is what makes us valuable. And what I really want you to hear is that practicing good boundaries will allow you to do more for other people, okay? Even if you feel like, how could you possibly do any more for other people, because you do all the time for other people already and you don't do anything for yourself. You don't have any time to do anything for yourself. Like, don't glaze this over. You even more so can benefit from this practice, okay? Notice how when you set healthy boundaries in place for yourself, unapologetically, this is just what I will and won't do. This is what feels good for me, and I'm going to be authentic for myself and support myself first. And then I will use the fullness and overflow to give to other people. Notice how you're able to do so much more for those people than you were ever able to do before, genuinely, with a smile on your face, okay? I'm not saying you can't help other people. I'm saying this is going to help you help other people, okay? And, it's not that men don't have this need to accommodate. Sometimes there are certain men that certainly have learned that they need to accommodate other people to be valuable or loved or whatever. And there's something about the difference between men and women oftentimes, that men, they don't feel the need to sacrifice themselves and what feels good for themselves to act out of alignment with what they want to do. Like, they just don't do that because they would lose respect for themselves. Like, it actually kind of makes them sad to think that we would cross our own boundaries that way. They just assume that if we're doing it, that it must be what feels right for us. Like, we must be happy to do it. And then a bunch of, notice where that could create some really significant communication challenges, a difficult relationship dynamic, because a lot of times we as women, we want our men to be more accommodating to us, right? Because we are so accommodating to them. They don't realize that oftentimes, it's a communication issue. And trust and believe, your men, ladies, will be very happy to accommodate you and make you happy But first, you need to be doing it for yourself, and that is going to allow you to verbalize specifically what they can do to make you feel happy, and they will love to do that for you. So I'm getting kind of off topic, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Let me know what you think. So I don't see any comments. I see I've gotten a couple notifications, so I don't know if that's like comments on this video that I just can't see in the time. I don't know if anyone's with me, but I hope if you're watching in the replay that you're still with me. Thank you so much for being here. Let's go into the process that I started for you. And we're going to be kind of breezing through this because we're already almost at an hour, okay? But I just wanted to put on the table that a lot of setting boundaries is really guided by desire. Okay, so if you're feeling disconnected from your desire, I want you to go back and think about body love again, first of all. Really connect with your desires, because when you can look internally on a regular basis and determine what it is that you want, so not only body love, but clarity here, what is it that I want in this situation? That's when you get to make a decision accordingly, right? When you're setting boundaries without clarity around your desires and clarity about what you want, what feels good for you, then it's going to be kind of like a messy, unfulfilling process. You really want to do this boundary setting from a place of connection with what you desire, a clarity about where you're trying to go and what outcome you would like to create, okay? So that's a frame to look at this whole process through. So take some more deep breaths, because I know we've been, just flying through some content here. I guess it's good that I'm here by myself, because, if people were here commenting, we'd probably be at an hour and a half by this point in the content. So take a deep breath and let's go through these boundary setting steps, okay? If you guys like this process, let me know. Let me know while you're listening what you think. I'll probably create another worksheet for the workbook that outlines these steps as well, kind of like I did for the emotional alchemy piece. So, okay, step one. Step one is about tapping into your ness. Have you ever seen the movie? Oh God, I'm forgetting the name of the movie, but it's with Kate Hudson and Owen Wilson and what's that guy? That other guy's name. Matt something, I think. But regardless, it's a movie about the guy, I can't think of his name, and Kate Hudson get married, and Owen Wilson is this like couch surfer friend that comes in and stays with them for a while, and all kinds of hilarity ensues, right? At the end of the movie, or maybe it's throughout the movie, he talks about connecting to your nest. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. This is the first step, is to really connect to your nest. So like your inner voice, okay? It's your inner voice. It's your desires. It's your emotions, connecting to everything that is you. So like everything that's inside of this beautiful golden egg, or whatever color bubble you choose to really bring an image to the boundary that you're setting for yourself, where you start and other people begin. Bringing your awareness to your nest. So when I have you stop and take deep breaths and connect to all the different nooks and crannies of your body, that's part of connecting to your nest, right? You're connecting to everything that is you. So your physical experience, your emotions, your inner voice, your desires, what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your unconscious mind, okay? It's all of these things that make up the internal guidance system, which will give you the way that you need to go. So that's step one, connect to your nest, okay? Step two is to run the scenario through your internal guidance system. So like look at the situation through that connection to your ness. Okay, so maybe it's like a decision that you have to make. Maybe it's a specific relationship scenario that's playing out. Maybe it's a thing, like a really easy example for starting to practice this is if somebody's asking you to commit to something, right? And maybe the inclination is usually just to say, yes, I'll do that for you, or yes, I'll be there, whatever. Instead of immediately feeling the need to respond, make it a process to connect to your nest, step 1, and then 2, run the decision through your internal process, okay? Run it through your inner guidance system and seek a yes or a no answer, okay? Seek a yes or a no answer. And you can always ask more questions if you need more clarity. And this might be something that would be good for us to practice during our one-on-one time. I also wanted to put on your radar, and I'll do this in a post too, that we have only one more month left really for you guys to schedule your one-on-one time for those of you who haven't used it yet. So just putting that on the radar. But really seek a yes or no answer, okay? And see what you come back with. We're asking everything that is our nest, okay? We're asking our body, our unconscious mind. We're asking, what is my reaction to this? Is it a yes or is it a no? Okay? That's step 2. Step 3, is it easy to proceed based on that information? Great. Follow the boundary. If you get a yes, say yes. If you get a no, say no. If it's that easy, fantastic. If a clear yes or no answer came to you and it felt easy to proceed, set that boundary. Start doing that, practicing that. That's your action step. One of your action steps for this week, heads up, is to get clear on your yeses and your nos and to start making your decisions based on what you find. Watch how powerful that is. And so if not, if that's not easy, if it doesn't feel quite so straightforward, step 4, if it's challenging, ask yourself, am I crossing these boundaries inside of myself? Is there anywhere internally that I can look where this is an issue? Okay, is there an emotion that's coming up for me that's making this feel so challenging? What's the emotion that's coming up? So especially as you first start to do this, this probably is where you're going to be spending your time. So like for instance, if somebody asks you to do something and your body's initial reaction says no, but it doesn't feel easy to say no to the person, then there's an emotion coming up for you. And the step 4 is to really tap in and understand what that is. Okay? Get clearer. You're tapping into your experience, reflecting, moving inside of yourself, and figuring out, why is this so muddy for me? Okay? Emotional alchemy is a great process to use here. If you find an emotion that's coming up or a challenge that's coming up, use the tools that we've talked about here to move through it and gain more clarity about how you want to proceed, okay? And then come back again, start all over again. Connect to your nest, which is a part of the emotional alchemy process, really, and start running it through. Once you've done emotional alchemy around whatever challenging emotion it is that's come up, come back. This is step 5. Come back and start the process again. Easy peasy, right? Easy peasy. As easy as setting boundaries can be, we all know that this is a challenging topic. So be persistent. It is challenging. Be persistent with it. Practice is perfect. We're never going to be perfect. This work is never ending. Okay? We're practicing here. We're practicing together. You're in a supportive community. This community is always going to be accessible to you. So that's true. That's what we're doing. Okay? Amazing, and I think that that's all the information that I have for you. So we can go into our little short experience, and I'll give you your homework, and then I think we're going to be good to go. But I'll say again, just to really reinforce this point, okay, that as we move forward from today, the next place we're moving is into connection, right? Into communication and connection and taking creative actions. Okay, so creating really good, solid boundaries for ourselves, building a trust that we will honor our own boundaries is an essential part of feeling safe enough to consistently engage in that connection process, to consistently take the actions that you're inspired to take. Setting good boundaries, even just the act of prioritizing our own boundaries, the act of really trying to understand what our boundaries even are, is key to give us the safety we need to move openly with open hearts into the process of connection with other people, into connection with the unknown. Like, what does our future hold? You know, openly into our connection with the universe and you know, all of those types of things. So this is a really, really essential thing to be practicing, okay? Setting good boundaries for yourself, first internally, and starting to practice externally by, you know, when your boundary includes another person, be honest. Really get practiced in running these things through your boundary system before you just commit to a bunch of things with other people that aren't fulfilling for you, that are overwhelming for you, and, you know, giving away a lot of your time and energy to things that aren't you. Okay? So I wish that some people were here giving me comments. I hope that this is helpful. Please feel free to leave your comments or even specific situations below if you need help working through this. That's what we're here for. I would love to help you work through what your boundaries can look like in real life, especially if there's a situation that's feeling unclear for you. Sometimes it takes getting an outside perspective to really help clear things up. That's why you're all here, right? So, all right, all that being said, let's go into our really short experience, okay? I just want to help you connect to your yes and your no, all right? So really take a couple deep breaths. Again, take some deep breaths, breathe in. Imagine, though, that your breath in is like wind moving trees in your chest, or it's like water swaying seaweed around in your chest. Really let yourself take some deep breaths in and out, okay? Connect to every nook and cranny in your body. Connect to your nest, your higher version of yourself, your desires, your emotions, your whole body. Okay, every nook and cranny. Just take a few seconds to really connect from the bottom of your feet all the way up to the top of your head. Notice that nice boundary that we created around you, whether it be a golden egg or a bubble of your choosing, whatever that boundary looks like for you. Feel how safe and connected you are in this moment. And now that you're nice and connected, I want you to simply ask your body, what is yes? What is yes? Body, what is yes? Now just note, did you get a response from your body? For me, it's a movement that's kind of like this. I get the urge to go like this, like, especially in my hips. All right, now ask your body from this connected place, what is no? What is no? How will I know that the answer is no? For me, this is the other way, from side to side, okay? What is it for you? Take note. And if you don't get a clear answer, that's okay. You might want to watch this again and keep trying. If you're not getting an answer, body love is also another place to look. Like, how comfortable do you feel really sinking into your body and using its feedback and trusting the feedback that it has? Because we're in a physical body, so our physical boundaries with other people, directly impact our physical body. We need to be asking it for its feedback about what it wants and what it doesn't. Remember that internal boundary between mind and body, okay? Speaking of which, from this really deeply connected place to yourself, your body, your unconscious mind, your emotions, your desires, your ness, I want you to ask your unconscious mind, what is yes for you? Is there any way I can know that my unconscious mind is on board? What is yes? I've never actually asked myself this question before, so I'll be interested to hear if you guys get anything. For me, right now, what I'm feeling is a little slight pressure on the back of my head. It's another physical sensation. And what is no? And for me, the first thing that comes to mind for no is nausea. Maybe that's how my unconscious mind communicates a no. And so something I want you to remember, you can take some more deep breaths and, bring yourself back up out of your body, back into this conscious space with me, okay? Something I want you to remember is that your unconscious mind, especially when you're asking your unconscious mind about boundaries and things like that, you might, especially at first, really want to be practicing looking deeper. So like when you're first really practicing setting boundaries, I would go with that body's response first, following the desire of your body, because that tends to be where we've gotten out of whack. Our unconscious mind is driving, whether we like it or not, in one way or another. We're bringing awareness to that process here, right? But if your unconscious mind doesn't want to do something, it actually might be a really good thing to do. It might just take some more asking and integrating. Remember, acceptance of those different parts of ourselves. There might be something going on back there that's making us feel unsafe moving forward. It's making us feel unsafe to set that boundary. So like maybe if I say no to that person, they won't love me anymore. Maybe they won't value me anymore if I'm not putting myself out to accommodate them. And maybe I'm afraid to set a boundary because of that. So like, just because your unconscious mind says no, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad idea. That's really what I want to put on your radar. Okay, so if anybody has questions about that, or please share, let me know what you found in doing that really brief little exercise to connect to your yes and your no. I hope that is helpful. Another thing that you can do, I didn't bring my pendulum today, but what we just walked through is kind of like using your body as a pendulum. And a pendulum is essentially, it's like a mystical tool of sorts that is just a small crystal that's connected to a string. I'll show you guys what it is some other time if you want. Some people use a pendulum to practice connecting with their unconscious mind. So I'm basically giving you a process that you can do that without a pendulum, without any kind of external tool, just connecting to your body and using that feedback, because it's all related. Okay? Cool. Hopefully we're on the same page. So we're diving into our action steps. I was here all by myself today, so if you're watching the replay, I really appreciate you watching all of this. Thank you so much. I hope you've been leaving comments to let me know about how it is for you. This is so essential. Okay, so action. First, I wanted to warn you about blurt phase when it comes to setting boundaries, okay? Especially if you have been in the practice of really crossing your own boundaries for the benefit of other people, if it feels really uncomfortable or challenging for you to start setting new boundaries, be aware of blurt phase, okay? Blurt phase is what I affectionately call the time period where you're learning how to set boundaries, okay? You're only just kind of sussing out how to add words that are helpful. You're just kind of like figuring out this whole boundary setting process. So sometimes you have to just say the thing without overthinking it so that you can just set the boundary, so that you can just say no, even if it feels kind of abrupt, like without an explanation or whatever. Like sometimes it's a blurt phase, like it's just going to come out a little rough around the edges. Be very loving with yourself about this. You will have different experiences of blurt phase throughout the course of your life, I'm sure. Like this can happen with emotions too. A blurt phase of like expressing yourself emotionally, or, you know, even just the experience of your emotions when you start to let them out and you're kind of going through a blurt phase, like sometimes they just come out. So for instance, I was trying to set a boundary in my home just over the weekend, and my man was on his phone while we were watching a movie and like was just really zoned into his phone. It was a Friday night, you know, we'd worked a long week, he'd been traveling, whatever, and I felt neglected in the moment. And what I wanted to say was something like, oh, you know what would make me really, really happy is if you could pay me a little bit of attention right now. I want some attention, or just something like that. Maybe even just going over and getting it, because sometimes that's what you got to do. Just go over and get it, as long as you're making sure to respect the other person's boundaries. Instead, what did I say? I had a blurt phase, right? I had a blurt moment, and I was like, I want to throw your phone out of a window right now. That's what I said. So I was trying to set a boundary to say, like, when you do this, like, I'm feeling kind of neglected, I'm feeling kind of disconnected, and offering something specific that he could do to make me happy. Instead, I was like, I want to throw your phone out of a window right now. Not the most appropriate way to communicate and set a boundary. But it was a blurt moment, okay? So I just want to bring your attention to that. I want you to be very patient with yourself when it comes to practicing this, and let us know how it's going, okay? So your biggest action steps for this week, until we meet next week for communication and connection, is to build an awareness around where your boundaries are existing currently. Where are you spending your time? How are you using your thoughts? Where do your thoughts go? How are you spending your money? Like, what are your money boundaries like with other people? You know, what do those lines look like where you end and other people begin? Are they clearly lined, or are they really fuzzy? Start bringing awareness around this, especially in the places that we've talked about, and start practicing setting new boundaries that feel good for you, especially in the places where it feels easy. So like what I said before, if somebody's asking you to commit to something, maybe it's like an after work event or something like that, starting to practice running that through your system and acting on what you get back from your body. If it's a yes, say yes. If it's a no, say no. So like start practicing that process, okay? And another piece of the action, the homework, is to really get familiar with your yes. What does a yes feel like for you? What does a no feel like for you? Really explore this topic so that you can understand the information that your body is giving you, the information that you're getting from your internal guidance system. Start really familiarizing yourself with what a yes feels like, what a no feels like, and, you know, sussing that out. And that is it. That is all I have for you today. I do not believe anybody is here with me still. So if you are here watching the replay, you are so amazing. You made it all the way to the end. I can't wait to hear how this goes for you. I love all of you so, so much. And I hope that we will talk very, very soon. Have an amazing, amazing, amazing week. Bye.